Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is the Voices of Healing podcast, and I'm your host, Tina Clark. I have a special guest today. He goes by the name of Yogi Gabriel, and we're going to talk about the importance of grounding today and perhaps his experience with Kundalini awakening. So, welcome to the show, Gabriel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, we rescheduled this so many times, and I'm so thankful that we were finally able to get together today. And tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
I'm thankful that we were able to get together today too. I should say that in meditation prior to this, I received that good things come to those who wait. So I anticipate this will be a really good conversation. Um, so a little bit about myself. I was born in the United States, grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and there was a lot of construction there. So ended up in the construction industry. I'm actually a general contractor by trade, and before the end of my formal career in the home building industry, I was acting as somewhat of a corporate executive. I was doing purchasing for all of the residential tracts that we were building, and then eventually went on to do some international stuff with Philips for lighting. And so my background is in general contracting. And I had an accident in 2011, which took my health from me. And unbeknownst to me, I was carrying Lyme disease. And so I was disabled for about a decade and stuck in my room, in my bed, much like a yogi in a cave, dark room, and in a lot of pain. So I was always with my eyes closed, almost like a yogi would be in meditation. And I was being misdiagnosed, and I had 5 major surgeries. And those surgeries led to a Kundalini awakening, which ended up progressing into what you see today, very much living a yogic lifestyle. So a stark contrast from the corporate executive general contractor to now yogi, traveling around from yoga festival to yoga festival, teaching about the human aura and spirituality in general.
Wow. So were you bedbound for 10 years?
I was in bed for a good 8 years, yeah, almost 10
Wow.
probably. I think I was faking it for a long time. I would, show up at the office. I also worked for myself, so it's not like I was, not going to work. I would show up at the office and then at times go home and have to get back in bed and then show back up at a job site and get back in bed. So I wasn't like I was bed bound the whole time. But yeah, for about a good part of a decade, I was very ill, very ill.
Wow. So go into a little bit more about how the surgeries um, are connected to your Kundalini awakening.
Yeah, so it's a very unique story. I have not heard another story similar to it, although I see scars like this a lot. I was being misdiagnosed based on the symptoms of the autonomic nervous system, which a lot of us speak to today. The autonomic nervous system, for those of you who don't know, it runs the automatic functions of the body, of the system. And so it's responsible for like hormones and heart rate and digestion and all of the automatic functions that we don't consciously think about. And it runs in basically two polarities. Uh, One is sympathetic or fight or flight, and parasympathetic, which I refer to as rest, relaxation, regeneration. And because the source of my dis-ease was a pathogenic infection, which we refer to as Lyme disease, I was pretty much living in fight or flight all the time, which was creating a scenario where I wasn't producing proper hormones or proper digestive fluids and these types of things. And in that state, it's real easy for the current medical system to misdiagnose us. And so that did happen several times. I was recommended 5 different surgeries, the first being a heart surgery, a few stents, and then I was told that it was my celiac artery that was crushed and causing the lack of blood flow to my organs, which was causing me my dis-ease. So on the 5th surgery, they cut me from my belly button to my rib cage, like literally opened me up 8 inches, 9 inches. And the surgeon cut on what's called the celiac ganglion. And that is also in the ancient texts what we call the solar plexus or solar chakra. It's a nerve bundle. It's not one of the 10 gates that we leave the body through. And I happen to have left my body on that moment. Spiritually, my spirit left my body. It's really difficult to explain in our language today what that was like to see the other side and be on the other side, but it felt like 1,000 angels telling me no and pushing me back into my body. We leave the body through one of 10 gates. You can imagine the two down below. And then there's, a few more gates on the body. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And hopefully we leave through the 10th gate off the top of the crown. And so that's not a gate that we're meant to leave the body from. And I believe that's why I was pushed back in, as it probably wasn't a proper way to leave the temple. It was about 3 weeks later, I was in a bathtub, and I tell this story because there are books out there that speak of being baptized by water and fire. I was in a bathtub full of water. I wasn't suicidal, but I was done. I wasn't able to digest food, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was really surrendering my life to God, like praying to God, please take me, please take me. And to my surprise, he spoke, and he told me no. And I argued with him for a little while until he said, well, I'm preparing you. And to which I said, okay, then show me. And I wasn't very nice about my speech. I was upset with him. And it was probably a few hours later that the Kundalini awakening began to happen. And I can tell you it was one of the most painful processes that I've ever even dreamt of. You wouldn't wish this on your worst enemy, even at war. It was, the way I can explain it, it was energy pushing through all of the shrotas, all of the channels at the same time. And so any stagnant energy that wasn't serving me was being pushed on, and it was very, very painful. It lasted for about 3 days till the channels were cleared. And then I found myself in a state of bliss, as the yogis speak to. We call it Satchidanand. And for lack of better words, it felt like a full body ongoing orgasm, just chakras spinning. And I, at that time, didn't even know what a chakra was, let alone Kundalini. So it was quite the experience, to say the least.
Wow. So the 10 gates that you mentioned, is that connected to the chakras?
No, I actually, there's 2 down below, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the 10th gate is out the crown. So there are sure there's naughty points at all of these, but this is when we pass, most of the time you'll see there's some sort of excretion from the body. So maybe there'll be some saliva, or maybe some blood, or maybe a tear, or other things you can imagine. And that kind of tells us where the soul left the body. It's a good indication of how the soul left. And that also plays into what frequency that soul left the body at, and potentially where the next life will start.
Wow, I've never heard of this before. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. So ideally, you should be leaving through your crown.
This is the goal. This is why we always are told look up, and why we're always trying to focus the energy up the main channel, the Shushmani channel. And this is as a yogi, this is the goal.
Is this connected to, say, you die a certain way, like your appendix burst? So that would be, maybe your solar plexus. Is that indicative of how your spirit leaves the body as well?
No, and this is a very deep conversation to unpack. Everything is energy, and within energy, there's sacred math and sacred geometry, and there's a lot of very complex formulations and calculations that go into these types of things. To sum it up as best as I can in the languages that we use and the experiences that we have today, we want to be in a frequency of love. We want to be connected with Source, and Source is above. And so it's accumulation of our work while we were here, how we treated each other, how we treated ourselves. We have to love ourselves first, or we have nothing to give to others. So there's a very large story to unpack about death and what happens beyond the physical realm and how that's all calculated. And it's a very simple yet complex. Just be love is what I say all the time. Just be love, believe, and breathe. And that's a very simple formula to live by. The
Right.
rest, if you want to get into the details, can get pretty, pretty wild.
All right. Well, maybe you can point me to a book or something that has more information on it. Um,
Actually, I don't read books.
mm,
I learned that the mind is programmed through experience. And I had these experiences organically, authentically. And so I stay away from reading books or watching other movies or other yogis. Sometimes that stuff will come across my path. Obviously, I'm not blind or deaf. I hear and see things. And most of the time it's confirmation that what I experienced was also authentic. And so I don't program myself with books or other people's teachings, or I try to stay connected to the source authentically. And so I don't have any book recommendations. I'm sorry.
okay, that's fair. So this is all information you've come through experience and meditation.
Most of it. I do have a teacher, so I have gone through some trainings to become a yoga teacher, and my teacher happens to be enlightened. I'm blessed to have a teacher that is able to guide me through his experience as well. And I also, Dr. Lad is one of my teachers. I don't know if you know Dr. Prasant Lad with the Ayurvedic Institute, also another enlightened being. So in history, it's always been verbally transmitted or energetically transmitted through touch. And I've been blessed humbly. I tell you these things. I've been blessed to have been touched and have the verbal transmissions come through.
So you had this experience where the angels were like pushing you back. No, it's not your time. So now that it's been years since this happened, why do you think that was not your time?
We contract into what we're going to do here. And I don't think there's any mistakes that the way my Kundalini awakening happened. I oftentimes think if I hadn't awoken by a certain time, I contracted that something very abrupt should happen. If you look at my Vedic chart, also humbly, I tell you this, there are what are called yogas. And if you have one, it's pretty significant. And I have more than one. I have several actually. So it tells me I've done this before, that this isn't my first time. The work I do with Ayurveda and Ayurveda, I believe I've done this in past lives as well. There's too many clues along the path that if we're open to the synchronicities that align, that this journey I'm on now is what I came to do. In fact, there's a story, Krishna Kaur, I don't know if you know who she is, but she's a yogi and she's an elder. And I think it was last year I was with her and I said to her, I feel like the first half of my life was in preparation for this half. And she laughed and said, that's deja vu. And I said, I've never told you that before, Krishna. And she said, no, that's my life. So I do feel like the first half of my life, I'm now just over 50, was in preparation for what's coming forward now and the teachings that are coming out of me now. Just the vessel for these things to flow through so that others can also find these truths. And they're all of our truths. It's our birthright.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It's similar to my own path because it wasn't till I was about 40 when I started meditating and exploring spirituality, and I didn't become a Reiki trained till then either. So the first 40 years I was, going to school, working and having children and all of those things. And then I needed more. I wanted more than that.
Yeah. I
Um,
often feel like I'm a little ahead of schedule with teaching. We're in each chakra 6 to 7 years. I like to think it's 7 years. And so if you count from the root chakra to the sacral to the solar to the heart, we're not into our heart until midlife, and then being able to speak our truth and then finding the light within. I believe a teacher has ascended beyond, and that's really when we're able to teach. And I think that the surgery blessed me with that vision to be able to see beyond um, this physical experience, and that changed me forever. I've never been the same. From the moment I woke up from that, I was belly breathing into a scar, as you can imagine, and I was thinking, why am I breathing into my belly? It felt like a rebirth, quite literally.
Wow. Yeah, oftentimes we experience a health crisis, and
Mm,
um, it for me, I know I can speak for myself. It's trying to tell you. It told me I was on the wrong path
mm,
and I was doing the wrong work and the wrong job,
mm.
and my appendix burst. So I use that example of appendix because literally my power was leaking out of my body. And I wasn't, you know, super spiritual then. I wasn't communicating with my guides at the time, not, not consciously, but I'm not dumb, and I
Mm,
was like, the universe is telling me this is every situation I find myself in, this career gets worse and worse.
mm.
And now this is the my appendix burst.
Yeah.
So, you spend a lot of time educating yourself and doing this career, and I had to walk away from it and say, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I had a enlightened MD along the path with the Lyme disease, and I remember I had a off the record conversation with her, and she said to me, and I about fell out of my chair, "Congratulations, you've been born again," which you don't expect to hear from your doctor. And I asked her, or I said to her then, "Yeah, I don't want to do my old life anymore. I don't want to be a contractor anymore." And she said, "Pump the brakes. There's a purpose for everything, and you're going to be used. Your construction skills will be used." And they have. We've built a few locations where yoga can be taught and where these teachings can move forward. There's an ashram that I was a part of. And so I now use it for purposeful, meaningful projects rather than, remodeling the vanity of somebody's bathroom or something like that. So there's always a purpose for everything. I find that, but I also felt what you feel. I don't, it wouldn't resonate for me. It wouldn't feed my soul to go back to corporate America and build homes again. It's not a system that I was here and meant to serve.
Exactly. Exactly. So, how is your health now? Like, what happened with the Lyme? Do you still have it? Were you able to overcome it, or?
Yeah, so you talked about guides. I was guided to pull all of my documents. Shortly after the Kundalini awakening, I was very clairvoyant, to the point where I actually even predicted the Vegas shooting within 10 minutes of it happening. So, I mean, I was plugged in and feeling what we call cities, special powers, but I didn't know what any of this was. It was just happening. Um, so yeah, I went through all my medical records, found where I had been tested for Lyme, and there's a big story on Lyme disease too. It's called the Great Imitator, and over 300 Western diagnoses can be attributed to it. So I went through a process of clearing the toxicity from my body. Took about a year, almost a year and a half, and felt better, but I wasn't better. I would relapse. And it wasn't until last year, March of 2023, that I found two herbs. Actually, on a YouTube video, there was a gentleman on a YouTube video that said that these two herbs cure Lyme disease every single time. And I kind of laughed at him because he said it first dose as well. And I was like, man, I've been through everything. I've tried everything. First dose. This just sounds too good to be true. And it was true, actually. The first dose, I felt it cross the blood-brain barrier. And I was out of bed 3 days later and haven't been back since. I've had instances, like I went to Costa Rica earlier this year and was bit by a few bugs. We think Lyme disease is just a tick-borne disease. It's not. It's a vector-borne disease. So mosquitoes, flies, spiders, they all have the opportunity to carry this. It's sexually transmitted or been proven to be sexually transmitted. So we could be transferring this between each other as well. And so I had a moment of relapse, but came back, took the herbs again, and cleared it right back out again. So I feel very confident that the plants are dealing with the same microbiology and they hold the keys for us to heal. It's been this way forever. If you look at the indigenous people, we didn't have big corporations leading our health. We had the earth, and the answers lie in the herbs, in my opinion. So yes, today I am Lyme disease free. I move around in about way more than I ever did as a corporate executive. That I was traveling then too. And this year I traveled probably twice as much than I ever did as a corporate executive. So I am better, and I'm sharing that with others as well. That's another product that I bring to market, mainly to serve. It's not, and I don't really work today to make money, although it is a part of the process of energy exchange. But yeah, I also manufacture the herbs today.
Okay, well, can you talk about what the two herbs are?
I can. One of them is called bear root. And the reason that we found this root was because when the bears got sick, they would go pull the plant and eat the root. And the other is a sage plant that is found all over the country as well. And we know sage also is used for clearing. And the two in combination seem to be the magic bullet, especially when it comes to Lyme disease.
This is amazing. I know so many people who have Lyme disease.
Yeah. Well,
Especially
sorry,
especially
not to,
up in Connecticut and Virginia. The ticks are really bad in Virginia. I lived in Virginia for 18 years, so I knew quite a few people who have Lyme disease.
it's very common. I have been kind of beating this drum for several years now, and so it's not uncommon these days for me to get text messages or to be at a festival and for someone to say, "You told me to get these two herbs and you were right. I'm feeling better. Things are clearing up." And so it's a blessing. You know, we nothing is by mistake. We go through things so that we can hold the light on the path for others to also follow and go and, ascend certain situations. And so, yeah, and it is prevalent. It's all over the entire United States. There's some countries that believe, I think it was Amsterdam believes 60 to 70% of their population has it. And it mimics all kinds of diseases: Alzheimer's, dementia, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. The list just goes on and on and on when you begin to understand that Lyme disease is an umbrella for several pathogens, actually. And we call it Lyme because it was found off the coast of Old Lyme, Connecticut. So when you mention Connecticut, that doesn't
Hmm.
surprise me. There's a lot more to that conversation too. I try to stay out of it because I don't want to be associated with being a conspiracy theorist, but there is a bill passed in the House by the senators to investigate it as a bioweapon. And I don't think the senators would have done that without proper proof. So I always refer back to that, and I kind of stop the
Hmm.
conversation there. I've
Yeah,
I've done my research and I've seen enough to know that
I'm,
there's more to the story.
I'm sure you have. And the herbs, is this something that you can get through your website or?
They're not on no, they're not on the website. You can reach out to me directly through the website, and I do have them. We are in the middle of rebranding and building that business, and so it will be available to the public soon, probably within the next month or two. Right now, I pretty much I see it in people. I'll be in conversation with somebody, and like Bell's palsy, when somebody has an eye that's drooping, that's an indication that they have Lyme. Or
Mm,
someone will come to me instinctively and say, "Hey, I have this issue. I don't feel good, this, that, the other." And I don't diagnose, I'm not a doctor, but I can obviously make suggestions and share my story freely. We still have the freedom of speech today. So I help when I can help in any way that I can, but it's not on the website. It's not something I advertise.
yeah. Well, that's amazing. It's the first I've ever heard, and Lyme can be so debilitating.
Mm,
Um, I've had close friends who've had it.
Mm.
So it's good to know that there could be a possible solution out there for it. So the
Like,
way you talk about Lyme is very different than from what I know, and I'm limited, of course. But what would be some of the other signs that you would have Lyme?
oh, there's a lot because Lyme typically it's typically not. So the pathogen of Lyme disease is named Borrelia burgdorferi. That's just one pathogen, but typically when someone has Lyme disease, they have four or five, maybe three or two, but several of these pathogens together. The pathology also harbors heavy metals. So when these pathologies die off, then they release heavy metals into the body, which is also another toxin. And so the symptoms can be wide ranging, anywhere from headaches to schizophrenia. Like it's just depends. I often say we talk about pathology, but we don't actually talk about pathology in the sense of which pathogen and which pathway, and pathways are yogic. So depending on which pathogen and which pathway, we could get a multitude of experiences, which are then symptoms. And in our modern medicine, they take that to the MERS manual, which is heavily influenced by large corporations, say it's this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, and it gives them, well, it could be this, this, and this, and the solution is this, this, and this, which, if you think about it, everything comes from the earth. Even a pharmaceutical has to start with the earth. These are the materials that we have to work with. We just, with the case of pharmaceuticals, we synthesize them so that they can be patented so that a product can be made for profit. And in my mind, the most natural source of the materials is the best way to go. I practice Ayurveda, and a lot of that is herbal oils. And what does that do? Well, it draws out toxins and resets the pH balance and basically changes the environment to where the pathology is unable to reside within us anymore. We used to do holidays because we would go out to the field, we'd work, and then we'd come back every 30, 40 days. We'd have a fast, then a feast, and on the feast we'd throw herbs. So this was a cleansing process, not a monetary, holiday for the industry. It was a way to clean the community. And we've lost that way. We None of us are really talking about parasites yet. Most of us are infected with parasites.
Yeah, and they definitely don't talk about parasites in this country, like we're not even affected by it. Um, but I do think that we have them.
Most of us. If you have a sugar craving late at night, there's a microbiology in you saying, "Hey, feed me." And
Hmm.
so yeah, it's very prevalent and it's very unknown, but it's becoming more and more known. I see more and more discussions about this in today's social media and other things.
Yeah.
So more and more people are becoming aware and awakening to this. But this is not new. And these pathologies, from my experience, they live not like the flu. Like the flu will reproduce in, 2, 3, 4 hours. These are 30 and 40-day lifespans. And so they live off of the moon, the full moon, and they die off on certain aspects of the moon. And so the cleansing process is not, a week of antibiotics. It's 3 to 4 months worth of cleansing. And then we finally get all the eggs and all the live microbiology out. And once that happens, which is what happened with me, then, the body is very amazing. It can heal. It knows what to do. If you get a cut, it heals. Same thing with your digestion. If you remove the bacteria that's causing the dis-ease, then things heal. And I'm walking, talking proof.
Yeah, I like to think about as a woman, and because I'm a mother of two girls, just the miraculous process of just being pregnant and the body just took over. There's nothing that I did, or,
Mm.
I just had to go along with what the body was doing, and it grew the baby. And then when the
I
baby was ready to come out, the body told you to, that it was ready.
Yeah, when I told you I was laying in bed for many years, I often thought a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of time to think. And I thought to myself, I started out as one cell. And somehow today, miraculously, there's a trillions and trillions of cells, just like you and I are both trillions and trillions of cells. We're vibrating and somehow having consciousness. Like, this is amazing. How is this even possible? And it very clearly came to me that we are creating new cells all the time. So it only takes 21 days to regenerate certain aspects of the body. I think the liver is the longest. It takes 6 months. And at that point in my mind, I knew I was going to heal. I said, well, I can create new cells as long as there's life within my body, as long as the Holy Spirit's within me and animating this process of DNA and code and all of these things, we can heal. And that's my mantra. I tell everybody all the time, you can heal. Nothing is forever. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. If you change lifestyle choices, mostly consumption of energy, how you get that energy and how you expend that energy, the body is an amazing miracle, really, literally. And there isn't anything on this planet that isn't made from this temple. I mean, you can see, or you can look through glasses, or you can look through binoculars. You can walk, you can get in a car or a boat, but we have everything we need at the most basic form within this temple. Everything else is an extension or an enhancement.
Right. And we've been gifted with these plants that are amazing medicines, and we have to find the right ones. And sometimes we have to, you know, experiment a little bit
Mm,
on yourself,
yeah,
because everybody responds a little differently, and what works for someone may not work for others. But it's important to know what has worked for others, like
yeah.
yourself, so that you can go out and try it or do more research and, figure out what will work for you.
It's important to listen to each other, right? The wisdom is there. Another mantra that I live by is I know nothing, because the moment I think I know something, I shut down.
Yeah,
And if I just stay open to what others are saying, and I don't have to live by it, but it's good to listen because there's a lot of wisdom out there. We all have different perspectives of the truth. And together, when we take that, then the picture becomes much clearer, right? If I think I know everything, I shut down to everything else, and that's limiting. I certainly haven't had every experience that's possible, and we're programmed by experience. So by remaining open and listening and being one with all of life, the plants especially, they give us our oxygen, right? Without them, we don't live. So there must be
right.
more. It's a deeper system of symbiotic. It's a symbiosis relationship that needs to be there.
And oftentimes people are messengers.
Hmm.
And I feel the doctor that spoke to you, and said those words, it's almost like she was the messenger.
There
And
were
and that
many.
Yeah, and that's how it works, and that's why it's important to talk to each other.
Hmm.
And
And
that's why I love podcasting, because if it wasn't for this podcast, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know the wonderful people that are already going to be on the show. And I love to learn, and I will tell you, I will never know everything. There's no possible way, but I can learn, and I can learn from others and share in their wisdom.
yeah, on the physical plane, that's true. Your spirit knows all. And
Yeah,
so by coming more in tune with our highest truth and our spiritual energy, we have access. And so yeah, it's important to listen, I think. I think so often we just want to be heard, and it's more powerful to listen and to take in other people's experiences and process that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the messages come in all forms. It could be a feeling, it could be a knowing, it could be a picture, it could be somebody else's words.
A
It
song on
could
the radio.
a movie that you see. I've had
Yes.
aha moments watching movies.
Yes. I find that the spiritual realm is able to interact energetically. So It's not uncommon. I see it all the time where someone will be going through something, they get in the car, and then all of a sudden this song comes on and it's speaking to them. Maybe a song they've heard before, maybe not. Or maybe in the middle of a song it just switches and goes to that song they need to hear. Um, I oftentimes when I'm talking to people will hear a song play in my mind. We are antennas and receivers, and we also transmit. And so, yeah, even that technology of radio transmission is a mimic of us. There's nothing on this planet that didn't come from us, from our makeup, our template.
Definitely. Yeah, often find lyrics can be very relevant too.
Mm.
I'll just have the radio playing and certain songs will come on. I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I'm going through right now.
Even tones. Sometimes you'll get, we have what are called cities. There's 108 cities, so special powers. And one that is possible is sometimes people will get audible tones, and that can lead them to truth, or, maybe they're saying something they shouldn't be saying. But yeah, it's all soft. I find the spiritual realm is soft, subtle energy, whether it's a whisper in your mind, don't go eat that ice cream at 8 o'clock at night. And then we eat the ice cream and go, oh, I shouldn't have ate the ice cream. I should have listened. That could have been, a soft nudge from our guides or from above, ancestors, however you see it.
Yeah, your guides and angels and ancestors, they're very subtle. They're going to whisper to you, and that's why being quiet is so important because
Hmm.
we're not going to hear the whispers
That's
if we're
right.
distracted by the outer world or, you know, playing music all the time or being busy all the time or, whatever we're doing to distract ourselves. We have to undistract ourselves and start listening. And then I love that the universe is always communicating with us anyway. So if you're paying attention, you'll get the messages.
Yeah. Another teaching that I share is there's an old saying, slow down and smell the roses. And I oftentimes say, stop, just be the rose. Like if you really want to know the essence of the rose, which is one of the highest vibratory planets on the or plants on the planet, just stop and sit with the rose garden. Be in the roses. See what it's like to be a rose. But we're moving so fast, and that has to do with energy and the way that the brain's energy oscillates. And it's not how, if you think of a light bulb, the positive and negative are actually balanced and they come together, and then this light comes on. It's the same for us as humans. Even if you look at the word human, hu is light, man is short for mana, which is mind. So when you see the pictures of the saints and the gurus and Jesus or all of these figures in history, there's a big light behind them. This is our birthright. But if we're in such constant motion, stuck maybe in the negative side or the positive polarity, this is not balance. And we have to stop, slow down, balance the polarities, let them come together. And then that's when this light within really begins to manifest.
Exactly. Well, I love talking to you, Gabriel. Um, we could probably talk for hours about this stuff, but can you share with the audience where they can find you and what are you up to? What are your latest projects? What are you working on?
So I'm moving more into a role of teaching in 2025. I'm about to head to Costa Rica, and we're working on a bunch of plans for 3 to 4 retreats. We're working on an online platform where you can reach me at all times, and we can work on some of these things, the spiritual development mainly, but also health and wellness. There's a website that I sell the magic carpet on. I actually sell a yoga mat that expands the human aura and demystify that story of the magic carpet, which is auramat.com, auramat.com. There's also yogigabriel.com, which is being developed at the moment. So we're really at the beginning stages of this journey of mine. But I am available. And because it is the beginning stages, I'm not so busy that you can't get a hold of me. You can actually get me on the phone, and I love to serve. So if I can give your audience members any guidance, I would be honored to be able to share, some of the things that came through for me with others so that they can also elevate. And that's what we're here to do. We come naked, we leave naked. We're here to serve each other. We're here to elevate one another, and that goes with us. On the other side, we get rewarded for that. So it doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account, it's how you treated others. And
Yes, for
yeah,
sure. And I would say you get rewarded now for that, for serving others too.
certainly feels good.
It feels good, and things work out, and for your highest, good, and the good of the people that you're helping. So I see it all the time.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, Gabriel, I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. And I'm so glad we were able to make this time happen. I'm sure the angels are behind it, like
Always.
like they're behind everything. So
Yes.
all his information will be in the show notes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too.
Yeah.